Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So Screecher's Reach is the second of the 9 Star Wars Visions Season 2 stories, and we'll do our 7 takeaway breakdown. First one starting with timeline considerations. You know what? Like, we're going to name that takeaway 0 because there's no way to tell. And furthermore, I was thinking about this again after yesterday's episode, and I keep looking backwards. I don't necessarily look forwards in some of this stuff. It's entirely possible that some of the stuff that features Sith characters could be happening in the far-flung galactic future for all we know too. Just the idea of stories that might be told that are taking place in times where we don't necessarily know where they're taking place and we don't know for sure the veracity of these stories. Yeah, you kind of think, well, you kind of have to look backwards for these things. Well, not necessarily. You could be looking forward for all we know as well. So for a real first takeaway, we'll talk about the fact that this draws inspiration from the Banshee, which is a mythological creature from Irish folklore who is said to herald the death of somebody in one's family. Like, to hear that screeching wail is to foretell that something very bad is going to happen to your family. And for a second takeaway, let's talk about the family, which in classic Star Wars tradition is a found family. We have Dahl, and we have Bathan, and then we have 2 kids, Quinn and Keena. And the 4 of them seemed destined to be in this foundry, as it's described, also described as a workhouse, which also has ties to Irish history, and very unpleasant ones at that. Basically, these kids are destined, just without any other forces interacting on them, to live in this factory setting for their entire lives, just working themselves to death and serving some unknown master. For a third takeaway, we'll talk about what the actual story is that happens, which is that one of the workers in the factory named Dahl decides that she's had enough of the factory for the day, at the very least, and decides that she wants to go out to this place called Screecher's Reach, which is supposedly some sort of cave situation that may be haunted, and her friends Bathan and then 2 younger kids, Quinn and Keena, are coming along for the ride. For a fourth thing, I will just say that the animation alone is worth the price of admission. Switching from the foundry to then them on the stolen speeders and the incredible galactic skyscape that we get to see while they're speeding along to get to Screecher's Reach is just some of the most gorgeous animation I've ever seen in my life. And then arriving at Screecher's Reach, the animation around everything that happens in the cave, like these 3 different animated scenarios are just fantastic. The range of stuff that we go through with this is just brilliantly conceived. For a fifth takeaway, I want to talk about the emotions that are drawn throughout this story, from the hopelessness of the workhouse situation to the longing that Dahl has for something different, and the beautiful conversation that she and Bathan have by the fire. I almost said Dathan, which is, of course, the name of Rey's father in storytelling. So yeah, kind of funny that the 2 of them rhyme so closely. But the beauty of Dathan saying that there are worse lives and Dahl saying that there are better lives, just very touching. And then also mixed in with the comedy with Quinn and Keena, Quinn being fantastic and saying, "I don't want to see a ghost," and then the Banshee shows up, "I saw the ghost." Just, there are elements throughout that are very well done. Oh gosh, it's just so awesome. For a sixth takeaway, I'll point out that the cave itself and the way that Dahl approaches it by holding a pendant and saying, you know, "I follow your path with strength and courage," and how she believes that the ghost isn't something that exists, that it's actually in your mind somehow. This very much likens itself to the tree where Luke goes in to face Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back on Dagobah. But that is not how things turn out in this particular story. In fact, the twist is shocking on multiple levels. And for a 7th and final takeaway, and again, trying not to spoil how this one ends, because quite honestly, I just want you to experience it for yourself if you haven't already. But I'll say that the phrase "don't look back," which of course we all know from The Phantom Menace, Shmi Skywalker is saying that to Anakin, well, that plays in this story, and Dahl at the end in the audio description is described as looking back at her friends with an uncertain look. You get the idea that maybe, just maybe, she did not fully comprehend the ramifications of the path that she was on, and it comes to pass in that final moment when she has a don't look back moment that, maybe it's all coming to her now. I gotta tell you though, I've only watched the first 2 episodes from season 2 of Visions, and they have really raised the bar on where this series has gone. So far, it's absolutely spectacular. I hope it continues to hold up, and I'll keep sharing with you what we find in there. But for now, that is going to do it for this episode of the show. So it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.